Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out tonight for this candidate forum for Districts 4 and 5. I'm Rick Tate, Chairman of the Pickens County GOP, and I get the blame or the glory for this. This was my idea, so. But I'm not going to do much tonight other than introduce Elliot. My mom passed away and her funeral was today, and to tell you the truth, I can't hardly hold a thought in my head, so I wouldn't be much good to you tonight. But all you guys that have supported me and offered your prayers for me and my mother over the last year, I do appreciate. But tonight you're in good hands. Elliot Kelly, our state executive committeeman, is going to run the show at my request. And Elliot, I do appreciate you coming tonight. And from here, I'm going to let Elliot have it. And thank you all for coming out and participating.
Thanks so much, Rick, and I know everyone appreciates all that you've done for the party, especially coming out here tonight with your mother's passing. As always with our GOP meetings, we're going to begin with prayer. Dad, if you'll come and lead us in that.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity and privilege we have tonight as citizens of this great country to let our voice be heard. We thank you for these who have offered to serve on our behalf as representatives and those who are currently serving. And we pray that our time tonight would be productive. We pray that you would give us wisdom, help us to speak words of wisdom and to speak with kindness, and may our speech be pleasing to you as we address issues that are very important and about which so many people are very passionate. So we ask that you would bless and prosper this time together tonight. We do want to pause and ask for your continued comfort for the family of Rick's mother and all of the extended family, that you would continue to give them grace and comfort in these very difficult and trying times. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Now, as far as the rules for the debate forum goes tonight, yes, we will do the pledge. If y'all all stand with me and do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As I was saying, as far as the rules for the forum go, it's going to be led by you, the audience members, and the questions that you have for those trying to earn your vote for the upcoming primary on June 12th. As far as the candidates go, they're going to have 2 minutes for responses to your questions. For your questions, we'll allow you 1 minute. For timers, I will be timing, and as well as Gilda, one of our first vice chairmen for the party, she'll be helping me in the back of the room by keeping track of the time as well. We're going to allow the candidates 2 minutes for opening remarks and then 2 minutes again at the end for closing remarks. As far as the two empty seats that you see right now, Representative Hyatt and Representative Collins are both attending a Blue Ridge Electric Co-op meeting right now at the same time, and they're going to be making their way over here as quickly as possible. They had to be recognized at that event, but they will be here as soon as possible. Now we're going to begin with Mr. Cox. We'll begin at this side of the table if you want to have 2 minutes for your opening statements.
Let me start by saying thank you for being here this evening. I want to say I appreciate the GOP for putting on this forum. They do a great job each time we meet. We appreciate them so much. We want to thank the Tri-County facility here for letting us use their facilities. This is a beautiful campus, and it's a great asset to our community, and we really appreciate them allowing us to be a part of this evening. I want to thank all of our participants being here tonight. Many of you have come from work. You haven't had time to eat, take a shower. You're here because you love this community and you appreciate the good work these people are doing, so we appreciate you being here especially. We're happy for all of our candidates, elected officials that are here. I see one here that's here. We appreciate him being here today. And I appreciate the guys that are on the panel, all of our candidates here running for office. And I just want to take a moment and say my name is David Cox, as you know, and I want to say that I am a pastor and I am a businessman in this community for over 18 years. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Lorraine, and she has been the backbone of every and anything that I've ever done in my life, and I appreciate her so much. And I appreciate my two children being here today. I have Jordan, my youngest son, my daughter, Christina. They're a tremendous asset to me in my life. I love them very much and appreciate the good things that they do in their life for as Christians and people in the business community. I want to say that I am a proud husband, a proud parent, father, and especially I'm a conservative, I'm a Southerner, and I'm a Christian. I'm excited to be able to stand up before you this evening and share with you my ideas and your desires for conservative government. I appreciate your vote. I appreciate the time that you allow me to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for this time.
Mr. Allen Quinn.
I'd like to echo his thoughts there and appreciate all of you from coming out tonight. My daughter Heather, my granddaughter little Claire, and my son are here to support us, and they're working very hard on our campaign. I just want to tell them thank you, and thank you for all of you guys coming out. And a lot of you know me, some of you don't, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my experience and why I'm running for the South Carolina House District 5. I'm a lifelong resident of Pickens County. I was born on the Clemson campus. My dad was going to school after World War II on the GI Bill. I was born down there, and we moved from there straight to Easley. And I went to school at all the schools in Easley. I graduated from school, Easley High School in 1968. Now, when I was in high school, I worked second shift at Alice Mill, so I know what work's about. I know what this county used to be. Those were good jobs. That was in the 11th grade. 12th grade, I moved on over. I turned 18, so I went to work at Cycle Oil on second shift. So I know what we had in Pickens County at one time. Unfortunately, we don't have that now. I was drafted in the U.S. Army in 1968, the summer I graduated. I was promoted very quickly and served in leadership positions in many high-profile missions all over the world. By 1978, I had a family. My daughter was 5. And Duke Power offered me a position at Oconee Nuclear Station. I worked there for 30 years in management and leadership positions. During my time at Oconee Nuclear Station, I earned a degree in business management by attending classes at night.
Alan, that's going to be time.
Huh?
That's going to be time.
That's time?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And next, Mr. Philip Healy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Elliott, Rick, Pickens GOP, for putting this forum on. I want to introduce myself. I'm Phil Healy, a non-politician and the most conservative candidate running for the 4th District, South Carolina. I'm proud to call Pickens County home for the last 20 years. I've had the tremendous honor and privilege of serving this great country in the United States Navy for the last 23 years. Getting ready to retire from there in the summer. But I'm also a small business owner. I run a small business real estate company that serves the entire upstate. So I'm familiar with that as well. I've also had the Lord spared me and allowed me to survive my bout with cancer in 2009. And I'm forever grateful to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for pulling me through that. And I'm a non-politician, so I'm not a polished politician. I don't have a speech. I come to you as a concerned citizen seeking this State House seat because we have an out-of-control government and a totally failing education system, being in the bottom 40s nationally for many years running. Our youth deserve much better than that. Our infrastructure is a disaster, with the roads crumbling, potholes throughout, and all they can do is add gas tax, which was introduced initially in 2015 by my opponent. And he flip-flopped at the 2017 for political purposes. I look forward to the tremendous privilege of getting to know each and every one of you and earning your vote in the June primary. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now that you've had a chance to hear about who the candidates are, I'll explain some of the housekeeping. One thing that we're going to ask tonight is that when you ask your question, you do it at one of the 2 microphones we have set up. There's one here and then one at the audio table in the middle for individuals on that side of the room. If you'll make your way to there if you have a question. And then one other thing is we're going to use Sunday school manners. We're not going to use name calling. We're going to deal only in the truth tonight. It's going to be very simple. If you start using any type of derogatory name, we're going to turn the mic off. It's going to be very easy that way. At the center mic.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Carlos Casso. I live here in Easley. I'm sort of a transplant. I'm from New York, but the one thing that I noticed is you're wanting to let in businesses and stuff to make better jobs or better the economy. My question is, when I was a child, the town I lived in was very much like Easley, very family orientated. I watched, after I got out of the service, my town dwindled into nothing. Basically, it became a war zone, all in the name of expansion. What I want to know is, while letting these businesses in and trying to find better jobs for people or make better jobs for people, will you be scrutinizing who you're letting in and what their, agenda is as far as their ideas and stuff?
We'll start here with Mr. Cox.
If I understand your question right, you're asking what type of people are letting in our country?
What type of people are we allowing, for the better jobs? Like when you let a company in, are their ideas, do they coincide with our ideas as far as morality and structure?
Okay, you're talking about companies coming into our community working.
Correct.
I think that if you look at the market today and you're going to work to vet these companies to come into our community, numbers are the big game, money, what they're going to say, what they're going to get from the community. I hope that the people that would be employed by these companies, a large majority of them would just be people in our community, not people from the outside. Now, obviously, they do bring some of the personnel in, but I think the bigger objective would be to make sure that if you're going to move into Pickens County, the first thing we want to know is how many people in Pickens County are you going to employ? And we know what the people of our community think, and we hope that that's conservative. Thank you.
And real quick, for the 2 reps that just joined us, we're going to give you a moment to introduce yourself after this question, but you'll have 2 minutes to answer this question on, are you going to vet the companies that are going to be coming in here, and how do we measure them, basically? How do we know who we let in? So, Mr. Collins?
And sorry, I only heard that last little bit. So the question again is who, if we're going to vet the companies, and who are we going to allow in to the county?
As I understand it, is that a fair representation?
Okay. So economic development in Pickens County is something that we have been lacking over the past handful of years. But with that, I don't believe it's necessarily our job, especially from the state perspective, to, I guess, claim credit or to say that we're bringing in jobs. Ultimately, we create a foundation for businesses to come, and hopefully that includes a low tax rate, a good education among the citizens, a quality workforce, and unfortunately in those arenas, from the statewide perspective, we have a lot of work to do, but I think that we can do it. As far as vetting people coming in, I'm not really sure about what the actual question is with that. As far as I'm concerned, we recently, just this last week, we had a closing of a plant, and one of the first phone calls that we had, and I know the delegation's been dealing with this, is with our Department of Education and Workforce, and also with the Manufacturers Alliance, to make sure that we have placement for those workers. And Representative Hyatt probably knows more than I do, but the outcome is looking pretty good for all of those workers. So again, it's setting that more of an environment, not necessarily us restricting or us saying this company is coming or setting any type of incentives. And then also, I would also say that a lot of the responsibility falls on county council in that regard, as far as the first question of recruiting the companies to us, and that's more of a county council role in my viewpoint. But hopefully that answers a little bit of your question.
Okay, I'm going to respectfully disagree. Again, this is what I'm running on, is getting good jobs in Pickens County. State delegation's done nothing for Pickens County for 40 years. We built the Commerce Park down there. There's three, maybe four, I think 3 places left for businesses to come in. They're all low-paying jobs. Somebody didn't do a good job. We have got to raise the bar. There's talk of building another Commerce Park. We've got to raise the bar to bring in high-paying, high-skilled jobs. And I think that'll partly take care of what you're talking about. If you bring educated people in that have a good education, they get some of that. You know, so you've kind of vetting them right there if you've got the good jobs. And we need to partner with Clemson University. The state delegation has got to be a part of it. I ran against Larry Martin last time and told him 2 or 3 times, I said, y'all need to get some good jobs in here. And it's just like you said, it's not the state delegation's job to do that. I disagree with that 100%. I think it is their job. It is also county council's job. It's also Ray Farley's job. But we've got to recruit good paying, high-tech jobs if this county is going to survive and not be a bedroom county. Easley is a bedroom community. We can't turn that around. Low-paying jobs are here to stay in Easley. We still have places in District 5 we can put some good places to work. We've got all the way between here and Clemson on Highway 123, we can put good places to work, but they've got to raise the bar.
That's time.
Good question. Thank you. The key is creating an environment for these companies to come to within Pickens County. I think it involves everybody on all levels of government and local officials and the schools, Tri-County Technical College, Clemson University, creating the environment and the training to equip these companies with the best of the best to raise pay, get paid. Anybody can create a job, but do we want minimum wage jobs, or do we want good pay where somebody can raise a family and earn a decent living? So it's about creating an environment that's friendly for business, deregulate, no government regulations, and make sure they're trained and equipped to go on with and create jobs within Pickens County. And that's about my sum of it, yes.
Thank you. I apologize for being late. We had another commitment that we had to be to, but we apologize for being late. I guess I'm the only one sitting at the table that's has either been in the automobile or been at the dinner table with every single CEO that moved into the industrial park. So I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, they are vetted before they come to Pickens County. You get in the car with one of these decision makers that are going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars, they know about Pickens County. They're not coming here wanting to know about the climate. They've been here. Every single one of them, before I ever got in the car, before I ever spoke to the first one, they knew all about Pickens County. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'll disagree with Mr. Quinn. I know employees at Reliable Sprinkler making $37 an hour. That ain't a low-paying job, folks. That ain't low-paying. If that's low-paying, sign me up. So I believe that our county council has, for 3 or 4 years in the past, has decided not to make economic development a priority. But the present county council has made that a priority, and it's already starting to show off. It's already starting to show off because there's companies that are already looking at Pickens County. I met with 3 in the last 6 months that have Pickens on the short list. And so I can tell you that people know we're Pickens County. We're not competing against Georgia and North Carolina and Florida anymore. We're competing worldwide. And we're a player in this world right now. As far as what Representative Collins said about the plant that just closed. They closed. It was announced that they closed. I got a phone call that night. He said, can you give me the phone number of the decision maker there? We want to hire 50 of them. You know, people know what kind of work ethic they are in Pickens County. People want to come to Pickens County. South Carolina is
And that's going to
booming.
be time, Rep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, you're entitled to a 1-minute response since you were mentioned.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to the pay rate that he talked about. That JR Automation? Was that right? JR Automation. That is one good company down there that's paying good.
Reliable sprinklers, what I'm talking about.
The reliable sprinklers, $10 or $11 an hour. The golf ball company, $10 or $11 an hour. It's on and on. There is one good company. We need to raise the bar so that if we do build another commerce park, that they're going to be there. Now, another thing, he talked about that plant closing. When I ran last time in 2016, I called up there. They had a big banner up out front when Larry was running. He worked for Alice Manufacturing. So I called him. I said, what y'all got to offer up there? They said, well, we got one job. It's on second shift. I said, well, how much does it pay? $10 an hour. So I agree with him now. He's probably got 50 people that people are looking for that they can pay $10 an hour. We don't need that in Pickens County.
That's time. So real quick, I'll let y'all know the rules for the forum tonight. We already let the audience know that we're abiding by Sunday school rules, that we're going to use appropriate language. We're not going to abide in anything that's not the truth. I know that we won't have to expect anything else from our panel up here for anyone, but we did make that known. We're going to allow you 2 minutes for responses to questions, 1 minute for questions, and 1 minute if you're mentioned in a statement like Mr. Quinn was mentioned in a response. But first, we'd like to allow y'all 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Representative Quinn, or not Representative Quinn at all, Representative Hyatt, would you like to begin?
I'll be very quick because I know we're late to get here. My name is Davey Hyatt. I have the privilege of serving as House District 4. Pickens, Dacusville, Liberty area. I've served, this is my 14th year serving in the State House. I serve as chairman of the House Agriculture, Natural Resources, Environmental Affairs Committee. I live in Pickens, third generation business owner. You know, I just thank you for being here and look forward to hearing from you.
Good evening, and again, sorry that we're late. Also, while I have the mic, I want to say publicly, Rick Tate, been thinking about you, sorry about your passing, and we also had a predecessor before you, had a rough week as well, so to Philip Bowers, thinking about you as well. This is my 4th year serving in District 5, represent Easley. I've had the honor and pleasure of working on a number of issues, and I serve on 3M committee, on Children's Committee, and also on Oversight Committee. As y'all can tell, there are hundreds or thousands of issues that we deal with in the state level, and I'm looking forward to discussing some of those with y'all tonight.
Thank y'all. And y'all were mentioned in a couple comments before you arrived, so we'll give y'all a chance to reply to those. We'll start with you, Representative Collins. In regards to CBE, a comment was made that you're going to be encouraging people to be, our students to be put in front of a computer without a teacher, and then the kids will be programmed. If you have a 1 minute response on that.
That's tough to do in a minute. I chaired the ad hoc committee on CBE. We spent a year studying the issue, and quite frankly, that question doesn't understand CBE at all. I can take you to a number of schools wherein computers were not used at all, but they are CBE schools. The easiest one to think about that some of you may know is Montessori programs. Montessori programs are an umbrella under CBE, and they do not include any computers. So I would just ultimately say, let's take a tour of a CBE school to defy that myth.
And we have one more for you. It was a statement that you're not a conservative if you look at your voting record, and Democrats can't win in Pickens County, so they run as conservatives.
Okay, so a few things. I would say that I am one of the most fiscal conservatives down in Columbia, and I think you can check the voting record on that as far as voting against gas tax. In fact, I was the leader in the House floor against our roads bill last year. And looking at bond bill, farm aid bill, the original one, number of fiscal issues that I fought against. I think where that probably comes from is on more social issues, and I'll be happy to talk on those issues. And then, I'm sorry, on the...
And that Democrats can't win, so they run as conservatives.
Okay, well, under that theory, I guess I have heard that there's a crossover, and we can talk about that as well. And we'll see. I don't believe if you look at the elections that crossover, unless the argument is 20-30% of Easley is Democrat, which I think is kind of out of touch with Easley.
Unfortunately, that's going to be
That's
Tom.
incorrect, too.
And Representative Hyatt, we had one comment that was made in regards to you. It was a statement that you have claimed to be a conservative, and through your 13 years of service, you've had a failing score every year except this last year where you flip-flopped on gas tax. Do you have a response to that comment which was made?
Yes, I'd be glad to. I've never voted for a gas tax. I mean, I'd be more than happy to, somebody can look that up and show it to me, but I've never voted for a gas tax. The scorecard that you're referring to, only one individual supposedly passed that, and that was with a 76. And so you got to understand the organization that may be putting out that scorecard. If only one out of 170 passes it, and it's 100, and it's a 76. So, you know, sometimes people can pick and choose what they want to put out there, but a lot of times you just have to go back and look at you look at the person that's putting it out or the organization that's putting it out. Sometimes you have to sort of go beyond just one and see what happens.
And Ms. Raines.
This question is specifically for Representative Collins. Your DACA legislation you proposed to allow DACA recipients who Obama created by executive order, which allows in-state tuition and the ability to apply for a state job license, is discriminatory towards our legal American citizens. Arizona Supreme Court recently unanimously ruled that it is unconstitutional for state colleges to provide in-state tuition. We are a nation of laws. You are a lawyer. How do you justify your legislation being lawful?
Well, wonderful. I'll go even beyond that. I'll argue with you that it's the conservative approach. For the public to understand that we, by Constitution, have to educate these children K through 12. We're spending in Pickens County $12,000 to $13,000 per pupil. So stretch that out across, and I can be public with her name, but Sarah Batista, who graduated from Easley High School, stretch that across 10 years and what we've invested in her. And all of a sudden we then say, we're going to make our Clemson University 4 times what it costs for in-state students. I think putting up barriers to dreamers is the wrong way to go. I think we can be better than that. And then ultimately, you talk about taxes as well. One, they would have increased tax base. We would have a better rate of return. But two, also have to understand that both she and her parents have been paying taxes, and in a lot of situations, and then the testimony that we heard over a whole fall semester was these people were investing a lot more in taxes than a lot of other constituents and a lot of other citizens as well. So if we're talking about fairness, if we're talking about what's the best return on investment, and that's where I come from in a conservative perspective, I would say that we need to allow them.
I ask you that. I want to know law.
The statement was already given. Representative Collins is free to answer in any way that he chooses.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Oh, yes. You can respond.
Well, it's illegal. And that's because, and don't get me wrong, I've got a big heart. And I understand these kids that were brought over here, no fault of their own, but we've got our kids that can't get scholarships and that kinds of stuff. So we owe it to our kids. We don't owe it to people that are illegal. If they're going to get these scholarships and help in school, then they need to be legal, because it's our taxpayer money that's paying that. And a lot of times our kids can't get it, and they are legal. So I disagree with Representative Collins on that.
And we'll just continue down the table and come back.
DACA recipients are illegal. While I do have a heart for them, it's based on the U.S. immigration system as a whole. We need, that's a federal issue, and they need to work that out in Washington, just like President Trump said. He gave them to March, and of course they didn't meet the deadline to extend it, and I see it just got overturned in one of the court systems and sent back to the president to rebut that. We need our legal, the individuals here legally, our legal kids to get the grants first before illegals that broke the law. I mean, yes, they may have paid taxes for 15 years. Some of them didn't pay taxes, some of these DACA recipients. So they may have paid taxes, and I feel for them, but they still broke the law, and this nation is a nation of laws. So until legislation is passed in the U.S. House and signed by the President of the United States, we need to abide by United States immigration law. We're a nation of law. And just like President Trump said, we need to build that wall. And DACA is breaking the law. So no, I can't support using taxpayer money to give illegals something that's breaking our laws when we have our own students that are legal that can get those same grants for colleges.
I'll give a short answer because I wasn't in on any of the discussion. I didn't hear any of the testimony that came before while they were taking up that bill. It never got to the floor of the House, so I didn't get a chance to vote on it. Number one is there's not enough money in the state budget to pay for it. I mean, even if it were to pass, that's a huge amount of money that the state of South Carolina would have to come up with, and we can't pay our bills now. So there's not enough money to pay for it. You know, it's an issue that's not going away. Federal government needs to decide, are you going to take care of it? How are you going to take care of it? What are you going to do with it? They sort of keep punting it around, kicking it down the road, but it's an issue that's not going to go away, and somebody's got to step up to the plate in Washington and decide how to do it. You know, Representative Collins that's a passion of his, and I admire him for that. But you know, I don't see any way the state of South Carolina could afford to do it, even if it were to pass.
Mr. Cox.
Thank you. Let me say that the state of South Carolina is on the hook for $50 billion lost revenue for our retirement fund. We are about $7 billion in the hole on SCANA. We're already struggling providing education for our own kids. We have to be physically responsible, and we have to be able to say no to tough decisions. Even if we like it or don't, we cannot add any more debt on this state. Secondly, it becomes a rule and a question of law. We are the party of law and rule, and we cannot afford to allow these measures to continue to pass in our legislation without first considering where we are legally with these issues. Thank you so much.
At the center mic.
Do you support registration by party? And if you don't, why?
And we'll begin with Representative Hyatt this time.
The biggest reason that it's not working right now is because we have voter apathy in this state in the worst it's ever been. Every single time there's an election, there's less and less people voting. I don't know whether that's the young people or whether it's just people getting tired of politics or whatever it may be. I'm all in favor of finding any way to get more people out to vote. I believe, I hear from a lot of people, and I know all those people didn't vote, but they don't mind calling me about something they may need or complain. But, you know, I want to ask them, did you vote? And I know a lot of them didn't. But so we need whatever we can do to answer your question. I don't, right now, no, I don't agree voting by party, because I think there's a lot of folks that I know of personally that when they walk in, they want to vote for the individual that's running. They don't want to say, they may want to say, well, I want to always vote for this person. And they may not be of the party that they chose to register with. And so they may, those people may just stay home and say, no, I'm not going to vote at all if I can't vote for the person that I want to go.
Let me clarify that
Okay.
question. In primaries, I'm talking about the primaries. If you vote, if you're a Democrat, you vote in the Democratic primary, and you're registered Democrat, and you're registered Republican, you vote in the primaries, not in the general election.
Thank you for that. I don't think it solves the problem of Democrats voting in the Republican Party, because there's no Democratic primaries around here. So what are they going to do? To vote, they're going to have to register as a Republican, right?
I worked polls, and 2 years ago, we had a Democrat.
Out of fairness to Ms. Raines, we didn't allow a back and forth then,
So, I mean, there's very few Democratic primaries on primary day. So if they want to vote, they're going to have to either not vote, or they're going to have to go vote as a Republican. And so, you know, there again, do we want more people to vote? Do we want less people to vote? I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Everybody says we ought to close the
and
primaries.
Representative, that's going to be Tom. Thank you. Mr. Healy?
Thank you for your question. Voter turnout is abysmal. This is your seat. We need more involvement in local government, local, federal involvement. And when you have 10 to 15% turnout for primaries, that's not good. I do think if it can be done in a way where you increase voter turnout and each individual parties will advertise and get the vote out, I could support closed primaries. Republicans vote for their candidate, Democrats. But I also want all of us on the same stage together, brainstorming and debating the issues so that the people can see. I think it's good to have everybody's perspective, although I can support closed primaries if the Democratic Party and the Republican parties will both shoe out some money in order to get out the vote. Because when you have 15% turnover and you close the primaries, that's going to drop you down to about 5% turnout. And then you're going to have, what, 1,000 people show up to the polls on a primary? So it's a challenging task and one that needs to be addressed.
Mr. Quinn?
Okay, voting by primary. If you're not a conservative and you run in a Republican primary, you're being dishonest. If you're a voter and you have liberal leanings and you've got somebody with liberal leanings that are running in a Republican race and you would go and vote for that person, you're being dishonest. Now, it was said that we've got an increasing number of Democrats in Easley. So I say let them form their own party. Let them become stronger. Let the Republicans vote for their conservative candidates and their Democrats vote for the liberal candidates. And if you can't get a Democrat primary and you want to be a candidate, then you should move to a Democratic area and run as a Democrat there. And that way, you'll be doing a good job and you'll be doing a service for your constituents. But if you're coming in and you're trying to represent conservative people and you're not conservative, I'm sorry, you're being dishonest. I'll add one other thing to that. If you live in a different district and decided you wanted to run in another district and you moved to that district, to me that's being dishonest. We've got enough dishonesty in government. We've got to get rid of the dishonesty. That's what's wrong with our government now. They're all dishonest. They get up there and they stay for years and years. They can't become more and more dishonest. We need to have people in there for a short period of time.
And that's going to be Tom.
Thank you for the question. I do appreciate it. And I think I know where you're coming from. I'm on record. I'm completely against registration by party. both on the process side of it and because of the logic side of it. On the logic side of it, number one, again, and it's been mentioned, we have 15% turnout, and Elliot and I had a little Twitter communication on this. We have 15% turnout, and we're talking about registering by party. I think we can do better by focusing on our own party and trying to grow it and trying to get people to go out and vote. If we simply move that needle 15% to 17%, you don't have to worry about these boogeymen crossover voters. And then second, on the process side of it, I still haven't, even under the what the GOP is pushing right now, it is a voluntary situation for one, but two, even if you make it mandatory, which it wasn't mandatory when I worked in North Carolina and I voted in North Carolina, we could switch at any point. And even if you change that date to where you have to decide, well, as Chairman Hyatt was mentioning, wherever you are, and I understand we're in Pickens County where we're 92% Republican, but across the state it's a lot different. And for your Republican brethren, for them to vote as well, I think it's important to fight for them. So for both the process and the policy, I'm just completely against the registration by party.
I want to go on record for saying that I am for registration by party. Thank you so much.
Ms. Ball?
Do you see allowing more refugees of Islamic faith into the USA as a dangerous situation? And what, if anything, would you do, if elected, to keep South Carolinians safe from stealth jihad and violent jihadists?
We'll begin here with Mr. Cox.
I would say that this is not too sensitive of a subject. We all know how we feel about that. I think America is the greatest country in the world. South Carolina is the greatest state, and Pickens County is the greatest county. I love our people. I work hard every day for the people of our community. And I can tell you that the left, their idea is to allow our country to be amalgamated by many, many different nationalities and religions. I think even on a very small level, like running for House of Representatives, councils, whatever it may be, we have to take a stand against people who are going to open up our borders to allow people to move into our country when we very, very well understand their ideologies. I've had the privilege of travel through the Middle East many, many times, and I can tell you, I question behind-the-scene thinking with some of these people. And as a great nation, we benefit nothing by doing this. So I would say we must secure our borders. We must make sure that any Islamic people who are moving into our country are very, very well vetted. We probably can't stop it all, but we certainly need to limit it. I appreciate the stand that President Trump took on it. I support that. And I would say we must definitely have a very, very ingrained vetting system on this issue. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Ultimately, I think that's completely a federal issue, but so that I can at least answer part of your question. My concern with the Republican Party, especially here lately, is that, again, we're dealing with fear and this nativism that I just don't quite understand. I don't think that it's the party that we were, and I understand it might be the party that we are in the future, and maybe it's the party that's leaving me. But I do believe that the vast majority, and the only reason that we're making a boogeyman out of Muslims right now is because there are none around us, and we have none of that perspective. From each and every Muslim that I have met, and there are quite a few in Greenville that I encourage everybody to get out and to meet, are wonderful people. And I just don't understand why our party is going towards this, the fear-mongering that I see. So what I would embrace, and the party that I register to, is one of love, of compassion, and in that vein, if there is something before the state government that deals with anything, I'm going to be, A, dealing with logic, and then B, approaching it from a love and compassionate standpoint.
Okay, talking about Muslim religion. It's not a religion. It's an ideology. I was in the Army 10 years, and I spent a lot of time in those places. I got to know some of those people. They think differently than we do. Now, diversity, I have no problem with diversity. Diversity will take care of itself as time goes on. It's going to in Pickens County. We're going to see diverse people. I do have a problem with the Muslim refugees coming in here. Some of them could be radical Islamic extremists. We need to have extreme vetting, very extreme vetting, to let anybody of the Muslim faith come into the United States. And there's been a push to maybe have some settlements in South Carolina. I would say absolutely not. The places they have settled in the United States are having problems with them. They voted in South Carolina to allow Sharia law. I think Representative Collins voted to allow Sharia law in South Carolina. We don't have Sharia law. We have United States law, constitutional law. We don't need Sharia law. So that's where I stand on that. And again, I've worked with them. I've been there with them. And they just think different than we do, people. They think completely different than we do.
Thank you for your question. Refugee program is a issue that needs to be dealt with. I stand with President Trump on his extreme vetting of any refugee that comes from a terrorist nation. We need to vet our refugee program. We don't need just, like Mr. Quinn said, the Muslim religion is an ideology. And if you study the Quran, it's not a peaceful, loving religion. They want to kill. So to have, yeah, we need extreme vetting and just extreme vetting. I stand with President Trump on that case.
I think there's not a one of us in here doesn't want to be safe. I think we would just about do anything we had to keep our families safe, keep ourselves safe. I do believe that we should either build a wall or do some type of vetting on these people coming across. I think there's becoming too many of them. I will say that the state of South Carolina recently, the House passed a banning sanctuary cities in South Carolina. It's now sitting in the Senate, waiting to be discussed over there, but the House did pass that. We did take a vote on Sharia law. It did not pass, by the way, but we did take a vote on it, but it did not pass. I believe every single one of us wants to be safe, and I believe that it needs to start at the federal level. If it works its way to South Carolina, then South Carolina ought to do everything it can possibly do to keep its citizens safe in whatever manner that needs to be.
And Representative Collins, the statement was made that you voted to allow Sharia law. Do you have a response?
Yes, that's a poor understanding of what the bill was and what the vote was about. The bill was about making sure no Sharia law was in South Carolina. And you got to come from the perspective, in my opinion, if you voted for that bill, you don't believe in our U.S. Constitution. It's pretty plain in saying that it is the supreme law of the land. So if you want that, the greatest document that has ever been written from a government standpoint to be buttressed by a state law, then so be it. But I think that is doing a slap in the face of the Constitution. And then second, we also in South Carolina, we elected judges as the state reps and senators. And I can guarantee you if one judge went outside that box, it would take a matter of minutes before that was handled. So on both, again, the logic and the policy of it, it failed in that regard. And again, I think it's a slap in our Constitution's face to say it needs to be buttressed by state law.
That's going to be time. And Representative Hyatt, I believe you thought you were
He
mentioning.
indirectly referred to me busting the Constitution, so I did vote against the bill, and I'm not, I don't believe it was a slap in the face of the Constitution. I simply believe it was a vote to keep Sharia law out of the state of South Carolina, and that's the way I voted.
And we're going to have a question from the center, Mike.
In February of 2016, we had a presidential preference primary. There were 16 people running for president as Republicans. Just to get an idea of where you people all stand, who did you vote for in the 2016 presidential preference primary?
And I believe we started here last time, so we'll begin with Representative Hyatt.
I voted for Marco Rubio.
I've stood with and I voted for President Donald J. Trump.
I voted for Kasich based on his economy in Ohio. It had a good economy up there. I voted for Kasich.
I was the state chairman for Marco Rubio, so I voted for Marco Rubio.
I did not vote in that primary, but I did vote for Trump.
We're not going to be doing it back and forth. If you have a question later on, I'm sure he would be glad to address that for you. And I believe we've had someone waiting at the center mic for a long time.
As a legal gun owner and as a woman who has a CWP and I carry every day, we actually had an idea where most of you stand on this issue, but I would like to know from all of you, would you support any legislation for common sense gun control?
We'll begin here with Mr. Cox.
I would like to see open carry in South Carolina. I know our gun issues are something that we're debating each and every day from the left to the right. It's an issue in our churches. One of the hot topics are how do you protect your constituents and your congregations. We certainly have far too many laws in America regulating our gun control. I think common sense gun control is something the left is pushing to take away our rights, erode our Second Amendment, and so I would say that I'm not for that. Thank you.
To potentially ease your mind, I can almost guarantee you there will not be any gun restrictions in South Carolina. We have a very pro-gun body. In my 4 years down there, the 2 votes I remember, we have reciprocity with Georgia, and then we also voted, at least in the House, we voted for permitless carry that passed overwhelmingly. And I don't know of any, and this is what frustrates me, is, again, it's sort of a little bit of fear-mongering among the media and stuff like that. Whenever we have our bill filing days, of course, the Democrats are going to have some gun-restrictive bills, and that's what gets to play. But I can guarantee you, in the body that we have now or in any foreseeable future, South Carolina will not be restricting gun rights.
Well, in 2016, they were getting ready to put through a bill that really restricted our gun rights. It didn't make it. I'm for constitutional carry. That means you don't have to have a CWP. You can carry. You can get a CWP if you want to be legal in another state. That's got to remain available. But you shouldn't have to have a CWP to carry in South Carolina. I'm also for open carry. Think about this. If you're in a store or if you're somewhere where there's a lot of people and somebody sees you with a gun on your side, probably one of the first things they're going to think is, I wonder how many of these guys got one in their coat. And so they're not going to do anything. If you don't let the good guys have the guns, the bad guys are going to take advantage of you, just like they have in these churches, just like they have in the schools that are gun-free zones. So we should have constitutional carry, we should have open carry, and we should also have the option of getting a CWP if we want to go to another state and be able to carry there.
Thank you for your question. Our Second Amendment is under attack. on the federal level, state level, everywhere. The liberals want to take it away. They want to take the gun rights away and regulate the heck out of us. No new restrictions. I'm for constitutional carry. If you want the CWP so that you can carry in numerous other states, you can do that. But I'm for constitutional carry, CWP, but no more regulations on our guns, period.
The bill that was referred to earlier, the constitutional carry, open carry, I did vote for it. It did not. It made it out of the House. It did not go anywhere in the Senate. I did vote for it. I've had an A+ rating from the NRA for the last 13 years, and they'll send out another rating in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But I've had an A+ rating from the NRA for 13 years.
Mr. Willis?
Yeah, but everybody gets those A+, Davey. No, I'm just kidding. So, hey guys, thanks for coming. I've known most of y'all, everybody but Mr. Headley, for many years, and I know how tough this is, taking tough questions. So my question is for Neil, but it will drift into something that everyone can answer. You sort of elaborated on your Sharia law position and how we maybe didn't understand the intricacies of the bill and so on and so forth. And this happens a lot of times in Columbia. There's a lot of things that the typical person can't follow, but I've sort of been following something that's sort of come up in the last few days, and I want to get your position on it. So right now there's a bill that, if I'm correct, has made it through the House, and maybe the Senate's headed to the governor's desk. I think it's H 4496. Basically has to do with sanctuary cities in South Carolina and needing cities to confirm that they're not sanctuary cities. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you voted for that bill. But when I did research into it, what I found is that there are a lot of procedural things that can allow people in the House or Senate to effectively kill this bill. And
That's going to be Tom. Can you make it 5 seconds?
Sure. So 6 times you voted with Democrats to try to kill the bill. Then you voted for the bill when it actually got to the House. Why and where do you actually stand on sanctuary cities?
Good question. So the original bill, absolutely against. And the original bill, to put it in perspective, it made SLED create a report to send to our sheriffs and our police chiefs across the state to basically check a box and say, yes, I'm following law. If they lied on that, then they would have criminal punishment. So I went to Chief Tollison and asked him would he be okay signing a form, and he kind of just looked at me. So ultimately, I don't think that disrespecting our law enforcement that way was the right way to go, and I was fully prepared to vote against that bill. And if it remained unchanged, I would have voted against that bill. However, Representative Caskey out of Lexington came up with an amendment that absolutely changed the bill. It eliminated that form, but then allowed currently a citizen can complain to SLED that they're not following the law enforcement's not following the law. His amendment allowed not only a citizen, but also the Attorney General. And obviously, Attorney General Wilson right now is fighting all the way in California, and Representative Caskey was saying, obviously, he'll fight here locally. So it opened up the arena to where we can enforce law, and whatever's federal law, then so be it. Let's enforce it. So that's why I was able to support that bill as amended.
Would the other candidates like to reply?
Yes, sanctuary cities are illegal. They're unconstitutional. We've got them all over the United States, and wherever we have problems. In California, they've got several of them. They've got a governor that says we're going to become a sanctuary state. Well, guess what happened? All those cities and the people that lived out of those cities rebelled, and they said, we're not going to have sanctuary cities. So they're fighting it. We all need to fight it. Again, they're illegal, unconstitutional.
There should be no place for sanctuary cities We have immigration laws in this country. You come here legally. You apply for your citizenship legally. You apply legally. No sanctuary cities in South Carolina. If I'm I will vote against sanctuary cities all day.
Jeff, I hope when you looked at mine, it said all 6 was, I voted no.
Actually, I'm not in your district, so I didn't go to that. Good for you.
All 6 of them I voted in favor of because I don't believe there should be any sanctuary cities in South Carolina.
And Mr. Cox informed me he did not wish to respond. A statement, question from the center mic.
Thank you. Just a few weeks ago, the Senate Judiciary Committee had 2 hot-button bills in front of it. One was constitutional carry, which 3 of you have already addressed your support for that, and the other one was the personhood bill sponsored by Senator Rex Rice. I'd like to get your position if those bills, constitutional carry and personhood, both come to the House. What's your stance on both of those issues?
We'll begin with Representative Hyatt.
Well, I already mentioned constitutional carry. I voted in favor of that. Personhood bill, I'd support it 100%. The only issue with the personhood bill is that the United States Supreme Court has ruled on what can and can't be done as far as abortion goes. And South Carolina has taken that thing as far as they can take it. It's been challenged. Just about every bill we pass down, we usually pass some type of a abortion personhood bill at least every session. And I applaud Senator Rice for getting it on special order. Didn't you get it on special order to be heard next week? I applaud Senator Rice for getting that done because it looked like it was going to be dead until he and several other his colleagues led the charge to get that thing put for special order. And you folks don't understand what that means. Special order in the Senate's gold. So, but no matter what bill we pass in the state of South Carolina, we're going to end up in court because the federal government is going to sue. Somebody's going to sue us, and so we always end up in the either the South Carolina Supreme Court or the federal Supreme Court. That doesn't stop us from passing them. We still pass them. We still pay the lawyer fees. And then we still go by what the United States Supreme Court says. We have to abide by the Supreme Court rules. The personhood bill, I don't think it's going to get passed this year. We've only got 6 legislative days left. I'm not sure that that's enough time. I don't know how long it's going to take in the Senate. It doesn't take but 1 or 2 senators over there to lock it down. And so 6 days is probably not enough time to get it passed. If it would get back over to the House, I'd certainly vote for it.
I would definitely vote for the constitutional carry and the personhood bill both. Like he was saying, both will be. Abortion is, of course, the law of the land per the Supreme Court. So that is more of a federal issue that U.S. lawmakers need to take up, and it'll end up before the Supreme Court again, ultimately. But that's it.
Again, I'm for constitutional carry. I'm pro-life. I think that going along with what he said, we should pass things like that. We should test the federal government. When it comes to Planned Parenthood, I would not fund Planned Parenthood, state, federal, at any level, unless they took out abortion as a method of birth control, is what they're using it for now. Let them have all their other programs, good birth control, education, teach people how not to get pregnant. But as long as they've got abortion in there, I say no funding for Planned Parenthood, and I do agree with the personhood. And continuing with that and sending a message, a conservative message to Washington that that's what we need to do. And that's all I got on that.
And just so I'm clear, Senator Rice, a dismemberment bill got on special order, not personhood, correct? Okay. So we voted on constitutional carry and permitless carry. Permitless carry passed out of the House, voted for both of those. Personhood, Senator Cash met with him, and I ended up being a sponsor on the bill. My big issue is what Chairman Hyatt brings out is we do have to balance that with, as mentioned, we are struggling with funds, and you're going to deal with thousands, if not millions of dollars with legal fees on wherever route we go. But that being said, I do agree with the panel that it's our job, especially in South Carolina, to sort of push the envelope to see how many weeks we can go back. And I know I can speak for Chairman Hyatt that we did. We changed the weeks down to 20 weeks in South Carolina. We were successful on that. So both with personhood and dismemberment, I'll be supportive.
I want to say that, first of all, it's exciting to be part of this forum because there are a lot of issues here that we're talking about that some of us are not that well versed on because we're in the community and we recognize the need to get involved in politics. And so in this process, it's learning for guys like me. Now, I can tell you as a pastor, I am for the personhood bill. I think that anything this state or legislator or we can do as a community to protect the rights of these children must be first and foremost. I consistently talk to pastors each week about the importance of getting engaged in politics because what I see is the left moving so fast on us that we're going to lose these rights eventually. We must stand up as Christians, pastors, people in the community to say we are not going to allow this to continue. As a republic, we have that authority. And I'm excited because I believe there's a new day coming where people in our community recognize we may not be professional politicians, we may not have all the answers, and we may not say everything right. We may not follow all the policies and procedures perfectly, but bless God, we've got heart, and that heart will go a long ways in our legislation. And I want to fight. I want to fight for these bills. I want to fight for our constitutional rights. Thank you so much.
And a question from the center.
Do you believe that any advancement of Islam in the United States is an act of war against our freedom, our lives, and all we hold dear?
We'll begin here, Mr. Collins.
I've traveled in the Middle East a lot, and I've dealt with a lot of Islamic ideology. I'm yet to see one on a foreign soil that ever liked America or liked anything we believe in or like our faith. I have consistently discussed these issues and found nothing but negative conversation. I would say that anybody coming into our nation that is affiliated with Islam is not in the best interest of America. Now, I'm not saying that all Islamic people are bad people, but until we know who they are and what their structure of thinking about us is, I would want that very, very limited because I see a global threat against the entire world with this movement. Thank you so much.
Once again, we keep, we're, I guess, focused, hyper-focused. I was writing down the issues here tonight. Economic development, dreamers, registration by party, sanctuary cities, Muslims, advancement of Islam. And again, I don't know where our party is going. And I don't know, I don't understand. And I've been, my whole adult life has been basically, I was a first day of sophomore at Furman with 9/11. So I understand the changes that we've gone through in the past 17 years or so. But what I don't understand is our just hyper-focus on people of different race, people of different color, people of different religion. I just don't, I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer any of those questions. But the way I will answer that is I do think that we have stuff that is affecting us, things that we do need to focus on. And one thing that we haven't discussed once so far tonight, at least since I've been here. And the number one issue in our city, in our county, in our state is education. And I'm not worried about the advancement of Islam, quite frankly. What I'm worried about is at McKissick Elementary, there are 81% of our students are not on reading level. That's going to affect you, me, way more than any Muslim, any black person, any brown person, any person of the Islamic faith, any of that. So I would just encourage this group, people online, our party is better than it, and we need to focus on the issues that truly, truly matter in our city and county.
Okay, back on Islam. Again, I've dealt with those people. Diversity is good. Color, religion, all that is good. But now I've studied the religion because I was there, and it's not a religion. It's an ideology. And we really need to understand that the ideology they have is cruel. It's cruel, the way they treat their own people. And we don't want that ideology to come into the United States. Now, if somebody comes in as a Muslim, and I'm sure there's a lot of them that are moderate Muslims, and I think he said Islam, that's okay to a certain extent. But a lot of times what happens is they'll get into a large city and they'll get caught up, and then they'll become a radical Islam person. So that's what we've got to guard against. I just don't think that there's a place in the United States for that ideology, because they've got their own law. They don't even want to live by our laws. So I just don't think there's a place for Islam in the United States, especially radical Islam.
Thank you for your question. I don't think it's necessarily an act of war for them to be here if our federal immigration system on the federal government side does its job with properly vetting them and they are here legally. If they're here legally, they've been vetted. We don't need anybody here who doesn't support the American system and loves our great country and loves our states. I've been to 32 countries, so I've seen this throughout the world with the United States military. So I don't think it's necessarily an act of war. I think it's the federal government under the immigration system that needs to do proper vetting of people that come here legally through the refugee programs, through different programs. And if they do their job, diversity is good. I mean, as long as they do their job and they properly vet, I don't see where there'd be an act of war.
I think that, thank you for your question. I think the key to it is that we continue to support President Donald Trump in this effort, because this is something that he's in control of. He's making progress. I think we all agree that he is making progress. He's having a lot of fight back from the other side that doesn't want him to make progress, but I think we have to rely on the President of the United States to do what he needs to do to vet these folks, to keep them, to decide who comes in, who does not come in. And I think that's an issue that Jeff Duncan and Tim Scott and Trey Gowdy and all those folks will decide in Washington. I think South Carolina is positioned itself to where we don't, if it would come to South Carolina, I think we would be able to, obviously we can get the ban on sanctuary cities passed. From what little I know about it, most of these places, they look for places that accept them, not people that don't accept them. That's why you see them, a lot of them in California and places like that, because they're open arms there. And South Carolina's certainly not open arms to these kind of folks. So that's not to say they're not going to be here, but I think those folks want to go somewhere where they can be with like-minded folks, and South Carolina's not the place. But we just need to support Donald Trump in his efforts to vet the process, and however he needs to do it, build a wall or whatever he has to do, But the federal government needs to make that decision on a federal level, and then we'll let it work its way down to the states.
Question from the lectern.
Yes, I've been a minister for 13 years, and 7 of those years I spent time on the street as an evangelist. And as a pastor, in the past 6 years, I've been drawn on twice by a gun. The ideology thing of Muslims or whatever you want to call them, Islamic, Muslim, it's not about color. My church has every color of the rainbow in it. I have black, white, mixed race, everything you can think of. I think my question is, what real stand? I feel like we're overlooking it and we think it's just a federal issue. It is not a federal issue. I'm on the streets every day. I have met 200 Muslims in the past 6 months. I've met more Muslims than I have Baptists in this county. So it's not something that's just a federal issue. It is
And
right
that's going to
here.
be time. So the question is, what real stance will you all take? And we'll start here with Mr. Cox.
If I understand the question right, it's about what stance are we going to take on Muslims?
Yeah, the ideology itself. What can you do? What stance would you take?
I think we're a Christian nation, and I'm proud of that. We can't stop people from coming into our country with different religious views and ideologies. For me, I want to see our community in Pickens remain a very conservative Christian community. That doesn't mean I'm against anyone, that I don't love people. I have seen what I thought to be a very negative experience in Europe with people who are of a different religion, changing the culture and raising the crime rate. So it would be my position that I'd want to work very hard to really know who's coming in this country and understand through our immigration department on what balance of that is fair and what balance would be unfair. Thank you.
Just to be quite frank with you, you mentioned that it's not a federal issue, but I've been racking my brain here trying to think of things that we could do from a state level, and I don't believe in the immigration realm as far as limiting immigration, and I guess that's your, goal there. I don't know from a state perspective how we're going to limit immigration. That being said, I would say that to remain a Christian county, my response would be to show at least what I believe to be the Christian faith, and to show that love and compassion, and to give an example of what it is to be a Christian. And I guess that was your purpose of being on the street there. I don't think setting up any barriers, or I really don't know where you're going with as far as us keeping out or something like that. I'm not sure. But regardless if that's the case, then one, I don't know that we could do anything, and two, I don't know if that would be the right response. So again, I would say that we as a community need to show love, compassion, and the Christian faith will grow if we do that. The quickest way that it won't grow is if we kind of deny that.
If we let any Islamists in, we've got to have extreme vetting. Never have Sharia law. I think South Carolina could, and I think it came up, I'm not 100% sure on this, could pass a law saying they weren't going to accept any Syrian refugees or Islamic refugees. If that was available, I would vote for it in South Carolina. And where you get to the extreme vetting, you've got to say to these people, and they've got to understand that when they come to America, they've got to assimilate. They've got to be part of us. They've got to want the dream. that we all have. So that's where I stand on it, and it's trouble down the road if we don't do that.
Thank you for your question. It is an issue that's become localized because the federal government has not taken the responsibility for all these years. President Trump is trying, and he's been being fought by the left every tooth and nail. If they're properly vetted and they're here legally and you have a problem with them on the street, you need to notify the local authorities and let them get involved. We have a great sheriff's department, police department, let them get involved if there's a legal problem. These refugees that come here from different faiths, they need to realize that our Constitution is the law of the land. There is no Sharia law, no Sharia law. But if they've been properly vetted by the United States immigration system and the federal government, and they're here legally, and you have a problem with it here on a local level, security issue, whatever, the authorities need to be notified. We have a great sheriff in town and a great law enforcement. But the Constitution supersedes everything. It's the law of the land. No Sharia law.
To answer Mr. Quinn's question about the refugees, only the governor can, by executive order, can make that decision about accepting refugees into the state of South Carolina. Well, you'll get a vote June the 12th. So, as I said earlier, I mean, we just need to support President Trump, encourage him, do whatever we can to let Congressman Duncan know, Senator Scott, Senator Graham, all those folks, because they're the ones that make those decisions at the federal level. They've not voted. The president has not issued an executive order that the state of South Carolina will handle that issue. I think the state of South Carolina has made it very clear they're not welcome here by passing the sanctuary cities. I don't know what else we can do. We certainly, law enforcement tracks that. SLED is very up to speed on the number of folks that they think are illegals here or that may not be, should be here. ICE visits this state quite regularly, takes people back out, but because of some of the federal issues, they just come right back. And so, I think that the state of South Carolina has positioned itself very well to simply say, no, you're not welcome here.
We're going to be down to our final, I think, four questions now. So we're going to have Mr. Willis.
Okay, got another question for you, Neil. Thanks for coming and taking the hot seat for a little bit. You're the rep, so you have the belt right now. So earlier, y'all all got asked who you voted for in the presidential primary, and everyone bravely answered. Catherine Templeton's running for governor right now, and she's admitted to voting for Democratic candidate Vincent Shaheen, and she's taking heat for that. So now, to you, I've seen on social media you openly admit that in 2008, you voted in the Democratic presidential preference primary in North Carolina. Now, twofold. Why in the world would you do that, number one? And two, would you tell us who you voted for?
Sure. As you can tell, I'm pretty open. In 2008, I was living in Charlotte, and again, it's about a matter of perspective. And the city of Charlotte, it is more blue than we have here red. And they do have, to the earlier question, they do have registration by party. And once again, what Chairman Hyatt was talking about, you have an option. You have an option of registering as a Republican, Democrat, or independent. Independent, you were allowed to choose where you want to go. And same as in here, I chose independent so that I could vote. I am an advocate of any and every vote that you can do to go vote. And in that scenario, again, North Carolina is different. North Carolina is late. The Republican nomination, John McCain, had already been confirmed. So my only vote that I could go do that day was to go into a Democratic presidential primary, and I'm glad I did. I hope everybody. I wish on June 12th that 100% of people will vote no matter what their party affiliation is. It's important. That's what I tell every third grade class that comes to our State House. Vote. In that scenario, at the time, trying to think back so I do not say incorrectly, Barack Obama was, North Carolina was important state in the Democratic primary, and Barack was on his rise. I voted for Clinton because I thought McCain had a better shot against Clinton than Obama, and ultimately proved to be right, and ultimately I can say that I voted against Obama more than anybody in here.
To include the other candidates, and just so we know, have any of you voted for a Democratic candidate? If so, who? And we can start with Mr. Cox and then just go down.
I have never voted for a Democratic candidate.
Mr. Quinn?
Never have, never will.
No, I have not voted for a Democratic candidate. Never will, unless they can prove that they're a conservative Democrat, and I haven't met one of them yet.
I voted for Oliver Neely for the clerk of court of Pickens County, and he was running as a Democrat. So, but no, I've never voted for a Democratic on a state or national level.
All right. As a pharmacist in South Carolina, we are faced with a lot of situations with people who are addicted to opioids. South Carolina has had several bills presented to the General Assembly for medical marijuana being allowed to be sold in South Carolina. What is your personal stance? I don't want to know a party stance. I want to know what your personal stance is on medical marijuana allowed in South Carolina, only provided through pharmacies.
We'll start with Representative Hyatt.
Thank you for your question, and I think Representative Collins is going to have the most information on this bill because he was on the committee that just discussed that. I am not in favor of medical marijuana. If it comes to the floor of the House, I will vote against it. And my simple reason is because I have talked to other states who have allowed it, and to a man, every single one of them has said it's nothing but getting your foot under the door for something else coming. And so therefore, I don't think we should, and I understand there's the cases of children with epilepsy and all the seizures and all those kind of things, but 3 years ago we passed where you could buy the cannabis oil. And from what I gather is that cannabis oil is working. You may be able to correct me because you're a pharmacist, and if I'm wrong, we'll talk afterwards. But that cannabis oil is working in the state of South Carolina. And to me, that we do not need to be giving the ability to individuals to acquire marijuana in any form, any shape, any fashion in South Carolina with all the problems that we've got already. And every single state you talk to will tell you it's nothing but getting your foot under the door and something else will come in right behind it. So I do not support medical marijuana in any way.
And as a quick interjection for Mr. Healy, several who haven't asked a question or having questions popped to mind. One last call. If you have a question, please make your way to a microphone. And after everyone makes their way now, we're shutting off the question time. Mr. Healy?
Medical marijuana is an extremely touchy issue. People that have these issues are going to go get it in a state that does offer medical marijuana, period. If it's done in a fiscally conservative way, signed off on by the doctor, I would support a medical marijuana bill. If it, for certain causes. But it would be highly regulated because I'm not in favor of any illegal drugs flowing through this state. But if it'll help somebody who has terminal illness, or it'll help a small kid that has a terminal illness, why not give them the best shot of being cured. So, I mean, they're going to go to California. They're going to go wherever they can get it anyway. So why not let them stay here and get it under the supervision of a licensed medical physician within the state of South Carolina, regulated and completely signed off on by a pharmacist.
I'm in favor of medical marijuana. It's very personal. My wife, she passed away in 2010 with cancer. And at the end, I told her, I said, I'll get you some marijuana. She said, no, it's illegal. That's the way she was brought up. Research has shown it works. It worked for epilepsy. It's like holding back a medicine because somebody might abuse it. That's not right. It is a medicine. I think God created that. And again, I wish I know it would have lessened her suffering at the end if she had done it. But she wouldn't do it. So I'm 100% for medical marijuana and the cannabis oil. They say it works well too. So I'm for anything that helps somebody that's sick and dying.
And thank you for that, Mr. Quinn. And that's what y'all just went through is what we have the privilege and pleasure of doing down in Columbia. Issues are more important or more complex than what you initially believe. We stand up here and we say we're pro or con something, but it changes when you hear testimony like that, in which we do on all of these thousands of issues. We hear testimony on all sides. So that testimony right there, I think, changed some hearts, and that's what happens down in Columbia. So to answer the question, though, I am in favor of medical marijuana, but in a regulated form. I'm on the 3M committee, and we did take it up last week. We took it up basically as a show vote, and that's one reason I voted against it. I also voted against it because it was a 100-page bill that we decided to put on Tuesday on a Thursday agenda that I didn't have time to properly research. And there was a strike and insert amendment which would have completely changed the whole bill to something else that also wasn't able to thoroughly research. So I say all that to say, if it's regulated, if we vet it out, and we do have a pharmacist on our committee, and he is in favor, but he voted against the bill as well because of issues within the bill, and he also wants it a pilot program first, which I can see the benefits to that as well. Last thing I'll say is it's coming. It's coming. It passed out of our committee as a show vote, 15-3. And it's I would imagine in the next few years, you're going to see it pass. And it's just a matter of to what degree and what's happening.
Thank you. I would support a form of medical marijuana if it is highly vetted with doctors and we can see that it does have actual benefits to it. I think this is just the wave of the future. I think as far as it helping and taking care of pain and issues that people have, I think that once it has been vetted through the House, I would probably support that bill.
Senator Mike?
The name Republican is something where you adhere to a party platform. It's not conservative, it is Republican. And it's not about how much you're against abortion and stuff like that. Abortion is something that the party platform is against. So, all of you are running as Republicans in order to get that tag because you know that in the fall, 70% of the people vote Republican. But what have you actually done that proves you are a Republican? What have you done to advance the party platform? Mr. Hyatt, Your voting record shows that you are not as fiscally conservative, not necessarily Republican, but there are more conservative Democrats. Mr. Collins, you may have voted against the gas tax, but you did nothing to reform government to make it more efficient. You, in fact, were the person who promoted the gas tax more than anybody in the upstate. Mr. Cox, we don't know anything about you. You've not been voting in any primaries.
That is time.
You haven't had anything to do.
Steve, that's going to be time. We're going to begin with Mr. Cox.
I've been pastoring for 35 years, and I've been a part of this community for 18 years. And I want to say that I hope that the leadership of this community can keep a moral, godly platform as we move through legislation, and we understand that we all want the same thing, conservative values. Now, as a pastor, you would have to understand that my stance on abortion, on some of these issues, is true. As a conservative, these are things I've preached and railed about in churches for 35 years. I have not been involved in politics in my life. This is something I started several years ago. I have watched our parties erode. I have watched the left step on us over and over again, and I felt the need when I heard many Republicans say, and conservatives, we need people to come forward and run for office. Come forward and run for office. You're not an elected official, that's great. Well, we don't come perfect. We don't come with all the answers. We don't come with all the knowledge. We make mistakes. It's like Tara said, did you vote in a primary? I was scared to death. I'd never been on a radio talk show where I was being challenged. I misunderstood her. So I'm going to make mistakes, but I can tell you I've got a record for conservative values. If you ask anybody that I've pastored in the last 35 years, will tell you I am a conservative. Thank you.
And I would answer it that I think everybody on this panel, from what I know about them and what they talked about tonight, they're all Republican. And I would hope that our party is one, and this is what originally got me in trouble in Pickens County, is I want a big tent party. I don't want a party of it's my way or the highway, and I understand that viewpoint, but that's a viewpoint of a minority party. That's a viewpoint that won't get anything done. So I welcome anybody and everybody to the party, and it's also, I think, my duty and our duty is to promote what a Republican is and then accept wide ranges of that. Because again, if we want to do anything, we're going to have support. We're going to have a number of people with a number of different views. But at the end of the day, when we're in Pickens County, two of us have voting records that you can look, and I understand you disagree with some, and as we mentioned here today, there are so many nuances. One just a second ago of me being for regulated medical marijuana, yet I voted against the bill for reasons. And I think you need to understand all of those issues behind it on the voting record. And then for the people who don't have voting records, we can only go on what they say and their life history, but I think that they have proven that you have a Republican panel in Pickens County. I don't think you have to worry about that.
I'm the most conservative candidate sitting at the table. I totally support the Republican platform.
I have been a Republican since I was able to vote, 24 years ago. I've never voted Democrat. I will fully support the Republican ticket. We need conservative Republicans that have a backbone to stand up to liberal Democrats. The liberal Democrats are walking all over. Just look at Washington. Look at some in Columbia even. They try. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Up in Washington, we need to also send people to Washington to have a backbone, conservative Republicans, because those Democrats will run a mile. That Senate is very divided and feisty, and President Trump isn't getting much support out of them. So we need strong, conservative Republicans in office, and I fully support the Republican ticket.
Well, we've got to that point in life to where everybody's trying to get to the right of Rush Limbaugh as quick as we can get, and if you can't get to the right of Rush Limbaugh, you're not a conservative, you're not a Republican or part of the party. And like Representative Collins said, I've got a voting record, and obviously that's okay. You don't think that's conservative enough for you, but I represent 38,000 constituents. Each one of us in the State House have 38,000 constituents. And we have an election every 2 years. And so every 2 years, we're put on the spot to say, okay, are you conservative? Are you Republican? Are you liberal? Are you, are you way out over here? We deal with about 1,500 pieces of legislation a year or a session. And we have so much information that the average citizen will never see, will never know. And we base our decisions on the information that we receive. We have to make our decisions based on what we understand, what we know, and it's not always the popular decision. And sometimes we're going to get criticized, and sometimes we're going to get chastised, and sometimes we're going to get a scorecard that doesn't look great. But at the end of the day, every single one of these gentlemen sitting up here are conservatives. We're Republicans. This is the first time I've ever met my opponent, but having listened to him, I think he's a conservative, and I appreciate his service to our country. There's nobody in this room that's going to agree with me 100% of the time. If you do, then something's wrong with you. I'm not going to agree with you 100% of the time. But I truly believe that the information that we have, we make the best decisions on what we have. Sure, it's not going to be popular all the time.
That's going to be Tom. Thank you.
CBE tracks students from kindergarten past the 12th grade.
It's on.
Is it on? Okay. It tracks it from students from kindergarten all the way through. Can you hear me now? Okay. CBE tracks students from kindergarten on through 12th grade and beyond through PW 20, I believe it is. And it compiles, it's not PW 20? Okay. It compiles their data and keeps it through their entire school career. And it's been reported that that data doesn't actually stay with the school system all the time. It can be given to a third party. How comfortable are you with third-party companies receiving students' private information?
We'll start with Representative Pyatt.
I think Representative Collins is going to be able to give some good information on this one, because this one is something he really studied. I think our education system is, for the most part, failing our children. I've been a big proponent of simply saying whatever the state of South Carolina gives to that school, or whatever it gives to that school district, ought to send the money down to that school district and let them handle it, let them operate the way they want to. I know one of our school board trustees is standing there, I think, fixing to ask a question. I think he can better tell you what our local students need instead of me. I mean, he's on the ground with the students. This competency-based education is another attempt to improve our education. Sure, it's going to have some problems with it. It's going to have some things. To answer your question, I'm not trying to shortchange you, but I'm not familiar with what you're asking. Because, I mean, Representative Collins would be able to answer that. I'm just being honest. I'm not familiar with what you're asking the question and what the data following the student and being taken up by a third party. I did not hear that in the discussions when we discussed the bill. And so, to answer your question, I'd have to know a little bit more about it before I could give you the answer to that.
I think what you're saying is youth data is being given to third-party information. Is that correct?
Third-party companies.
Third-party companies. No, I could not support giving our youth information to third-party companies. I am an opponent of federalized education. I think it should be localized. I think our great teachers know our students best. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to 50 states. I think it should be localized with our great school board, our teachers. Columbia should send the money to the school boards and let them determine what curriculum is best for the students of that particular school. And I don't think our kids' private information should be given to any third-party companies, especially being minors, yeah.
I respond to that by saying the federal government doesn't need to be in education, Common Core, CBE. Some of the other states have tried programs that are like that. I think there's one state in particular that, first of all, they're getting a lot of data on your kids, and they're putting it into computers. And this company that got this the information didn't go to the state. It was a third party, and I think that company was owned by Bill Gates, if that tells you anything. You don't want children, all their information, all their data. It doesn't need to be public. It doesn't need to be out there. It needs to be within the school district. Work with the kids, help develop the kids in a traditional education, not the new stuff. We don't need, I've said it before, let's don't reinvent the wheel. Let's just work on what we've got and do the best we can with it.
Good question. So much to get out of here in just 2 minutes, but I'll try. So first, tracking. There is no tracking in the bill. There is no tracking in the state. In the CBE models that we toured Lexington 4, we toured Lexington 2, and we also toured Brooklyn-Cayce. I'm not sure what school district they are, but we went from early childhood center all the way up to high school. None of those schools, none of those districts track. And there's nothing in the bill that tracks. I will say in the fiscal impact, the Department of Ed requested for what they call an LMS, it's Learning Management System, and they have been requesting that for 4 or 5 years now, well, ever since I've been there. And their situation is, and this would make this situation even more of an important issue, is how do you transfer students between different districts, especially if one district's a CBE district compared to a traditional, and how is that system going to transfer across? So obviously they think they're behind in the sense that technology, they're way behind in technology and they're not able to do that. But to answer your question, there's no tracking in this bill. I know that there's myths out there with other states that this is becoming a federal boondoggle, stuff like that, but it wasn't in the bill. And while I have the mic on it, it's kind of funny that, and I know I'm the sponsor and I've been out front with it, but CBE is just one stab at an apple. We are performing so poorly with education. We need to try anything and everything. And this is just one attempt. Hopefully next year I will have another bill that has a completely different model. What we're trying to do is give school districts a flexible model that they want to choose. In this bill, our school board would have to vote on whether they want CBE or not.
And that's going to be time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not in the House yet, but this is an issue that I know Neil would have more information on than I would. I'm not a big proponent of this, and I think a lot of our constituents in our district are not. I think that our education has a long ways to go. I know I've looked at statistics for the last 15, 16 years. They haven't changed a lot. We have a lot of work to do in South Carolina. I don't know that anybody today has all the answers. I think we have to work very, very hard. Thing that I would say is that I'm proud of South Carolina. I'm proud of our district and appreciate the hard work that each of our people put in making sure that these kids get a fair education.
Thank you all.
Commander Wilson, I do serve on the school board. I will, if you want to fix schools, you give every school in our state the same freedoms you give charter schools. And let every school have their own school board in that school. That's local government at its finest. And you approach the cultural issues that are underlying some of the performance issues we have in the house that go to school with the kids. Those are simple things. Neil said that McKissick has an 8% graduation rate. Well, that's true. Not graduation rate, reading rate. That's true. That's why we reconstituted McKissick completely this year, and most likely something like half of their staff will turn over, and we'll get kids in there that, some teachers in there that will do a good job for us. And as a school board member, folks in my community trust me. I won this seat with an overwhelming majority, and people ask me questions about the folks that are going to represent us in the state. And I always tell them the same thing. And I want you guys to give me the answers, and I'm going to give the folks when they ask me this question throughout the rest of this race. Are they committed to living in the district they're going to support and represent? So I'd ask you guys, how long have y'all lived in State House 5 and in State House 4? And then they ask me questions about, are they conservative, not conservative?
That is time. Can you throw it into 5 seconds?
Yeah, I got it here. So is your voting record, your personal voting record in primaries, been in a Republican primary, and you guys have already to defend yours, and then are they committed to the people in our community? Like Rex Rice, he shows up at the Cattlemen's Association, he carries the coolers. They're working, they're volunteering, he's cleaning the roads. So tell us about the things you do in the community that's not paid work, like a pastor, not paid work like for the State House, the things you're doing in our community to invest in our community, make it a better place. I'd like to know those 3 things from you guys.
And we'll begin with Mr. Cox.
Okay. First of all, I'm not a paid pastor. For the last 15 years, I've donated my time to my district and to my community. I have a heart for people, and I believe sacrificing is a part of who we are as people. We have to give back to the community, and I have done so for the last 15 years. My last full-time paid position was, I think, in 2005, so probably a little over 15 years. I have a project called the Urban Society of Advancements, which I'm the founder and president of, and I work with small businesses and communities to help small businesses organize themselves so they can stay in business. I have a passion to help people run businesses. I grew up in a very poor home where I struggled with hunger, with many different problems like many of you have had, and I've been given the privilege and blessings of my Savior, Jesus Christ, to have been extremely blessed financially, and I thank God for that. And I've had a tremendous ministry pastoring people, and I've never regretted one day of it. I love helping people. I've been up at 5 o'clock in the morning with people who have been sick. I've been with people who are dying at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I had many, many other things to do. I love helping people, and I love helping small businesses. Probably every day of my life, I talk to small businesses, people who are struggling to stay in business. I take my time out, and I counsel, and I help, and I guide those people so they can stay in business and be a productive asset in this community. And I can tell you, I've been in this district for 18 years. No doubt, probably you know a lot of people that have either worked for me or made money off my company. I have lived here among you in Easley for the last 18 years. This is where I buy my groceries. This is where I pay my bills. This is where I run my office, and it's a great community. When I started my campaign, I started in District 4, but I realized very quickly that that's just not where the people that I connect the most with. And so I moved into District 5. And I took the advice of my staff, and they agreed, said, this is the best choice for you.
That's going to be time.
Thank you.
Just make sure. Have you voted in any Republican primaries?
I think I stated that I have not.
Never.
I have not.
And you don't live in this district?
Yes, I do live in this district.
Now, how long have you lived in the district?
Since February. I answered that.
So you moved since February?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Neil, did you carpet bag into the district?
I'll answer your original question. First, have freedom of charter school. I'm right with you. CBE, and this is what gets me about the critics of CBE, especially here locally. This bill would allow a school district to exempt from any and all regulations that the State Department puts on. I don't know of any more conservative viewpoint that you can get than that. So, first, CBE. Second, as far as where you're from, I took my first breath here in Easley. I had my first spanking here. I had my second, third, fourth, and fifth. Eagle Scout, high school, was student body president, played 2 sports, This is my community that I wanted to come back home. I didn't realize that I would come back home so soon, but wanted to come back home and give. And talking about getting your hands dirty, it comes in many different forms and fashions. Today, for example, I was at SWU this morning, at Getty's, at Easley High. Tomorrow, we have a mental health forum that Senator Rice is putting on. I'm part of ACOG that I have to go to Greenville for. I also serve on the YMCA board that we have a meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow's our day off. We're supposedly off tomorrow. But from my viewpoint, I have tried to get as active as I possibly can in the political arena of GPATS, ACOG, CTC, on things that matter in the political world. And I hope it shows results in the future. We have an application out there to expand 183 and to extend 153 to 183. The only way that we had that application is because I was able to get on these committees and to understand the road processes and how we do it. First time in Pickens County history that we applied for infrastructure bank money. And in doing so, I also had to have the buy-in of county council, which I applaud them for.
That's time. But could you, just real quick answers, how long have you lived here?
Since 1982 on and off, and ever since 2009.
Voted in GOP primaries?
I have, as mentioned earlier, I have voted every moment I can.
Mr. Quinn.
Okay, as far as the community goes, I'm heavily involved in presenting rodeos. I was heavily involved with the South Carolina High School Rodeo statewide from '89 until 2005. I served as their national director in Denver, Colorado, working all the time with the young people. We started with a very, very small association in South Carolina. When I left, it was booming. It was a great association. We worked with the Navy Junior ROTC from Easley High School for 13 years, giving them a fundraiser to work with the South Carolina High School Rodeo. We would put one on at our farm behind Rock Springs Road every year for 13 years. I've lived in Pickens County. I was born when we lived in Clemson. We moved to Easley as soon as my daddy graduated, and I've lived in Pickens County except for the 10 years that I was in the service in the U.S. Army. Other than that, I've lived here always and always will. And even when I was away, we would come home, and Easley has always been home for us.
Wait,
And
Alan,
you voted in GOP primaries?
All of them.
Did you carpetbag into this particular district?
Your question time is over.
No, I've lived on the farm
Mr. Quinn.
since I was 10 years
Mr.
old.
Quinn, your time is up.
Okay.
Mr. Healy.
Yes, I have voted in all the GOP primaries. I have lived in Pickens for 22 years now, and I'm not going anywhere. I've got my own street name, named after my last name. So I served 23 years in the United States Navy, traveling to 32 different countries. It's been an incredible privilege. One thing I've noticed in traveling to 32 different countries is each of those 32 countries have strict immigration laws, and you can't get in and out of there without proper vetting. So if they can do it, we can do it. I'm also a chairman of a 501c3 that has a 99% pass-through ratio that helps people in financial need. I've helped people avoid foreclosure within the community, and I'm striving to take, as I have to retire from the Navy, I'm taking a bigger role in the community. And that's...
And you voted in GOP primaries?
I did vote in all the GOP primaries, yes, sir.
Representative Hyatt.
I have voted in every Republican primary that I've been eligible to vote. I'm 57 years old. I've lived in Pickens 57 years. I've attended the same church 57 years. I've been a deacon for 16 years. I'm the third generation business owner in Pickens. I worked in the same building since 1968. My grandfather named the Pickens Blue Flame. My family founded the Pickens Sentinel. I started the Pickens County Courier in 2005. My wife taught school in Pickens County schools for 16 years. I raised 2 children who came through the school system all the way through the Pickens schools, attended the Pickens schools, a member of the Pickens Rotary Club, past member of the Pickens YMCA. I was on the committee that raised the funds to build a new Pickens YMCA, and my time's probably up, or I could go on and on and on. But yes, I have lived here my entire life. I have voted in every single Republican primary, and we've been meeting a payroll in Pickens, South Carolina since 1918.
Henry Wilson, your time is up. Thank you.
I'm going to exercise my prerogative as chairman and close this thing out. 2 things. Well, my last 2 questions are going to be for David and Neil, but before I get to that, ask all of you, have you read, but because this is a Republican Party event, and I am the chairman of the Republican Party, and we need to try to vet people as best we can, simple question, have you read the party platform, and do you support it? Or if there's a particular plank in the platform you'd like to try to implement while you're in office or your next term in office, I'd like to hear it.
Representative Pyatt.
I read it the first time I decided to run. I've read it ever since then, and I do support it.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, I have read it and I support it.
I have read it, I support it. I have read the Tea Party platform, and I support a lot of that too.
Read the platform, probably 2016 was the last time I read it. Like anything else, there's some things I agree with, some things I don't agree with. The current one, obviously, is registration by party. So I would have to take an issue-by-issue stance on it.
Can I recommend, you was talking about doing something in education, another approach. Follow the approach in the platform next time. I would love to see the education position in the platform put on the floor and debated.
Have read it and support it.
Thank you. And these next 2 questions, I don't mean to be unkind. These things are going to come up in the campaign, and I think it's to your benefit to answer them here before the people, rather than having people snipe at you on Facebook and innuendo and all that kind of stuff. I think it's better for either of you to answer these straight on yourself. Start with you, Neil. You were very outspoken after Trump got the nomination the last time, that you wouldn't vote for him in a general election, and if you did vote, that you would vote for an independent candidate. You would not vote for the Republican candidate. As chairman of the Republican Party, that kind of, well, you know, it kind of sour a little bit. That you didn't support him is fine with me. That you were so vocal publicly about your distaste with him and going against the party does bother me a little bit. Given that you went against the wishes of the people in the county as a majority, as his pick, why should you be our party standard bearer? And I don't mean that unkindly.
No, good question. Well, I think part of my role as a leader in the county is to be honest with the people and then to show our own flaws. I don't think that we should be a cheerleader for anybody, anything, any issue, just wholeheartedly without any, I guess, critique. And I think in President Trump, there are some things that I have agreed with him on, but much that I disagree with him on, and things that I do not believe are conservative in any form or fashion. Then when you put into the second part of the morality part of it, I don't think he is a standard bearer for being a leader, a man, or a Christian, or anything. So it's my job to let that be known, and also to give people the confidence that at least one leader is saying what I believe, and I'm just not towing the party line.
If either of y'all want to respond to any of this, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. I told you a few minutes ago I voted for Kasich, and I told you why. He didn't make it. So then I voted for Trump. I had some reservations. I mean, he does things his own way. And I looked, and then I bought his book. The Art of the Deal. He wrote that book, and I'm about the same age as him. He wrote that book when he was in his 30s. The guy has not changed. He's a businessman. That's what we need in government. We need people that run government as a business. If you're going to have an attorney or a lawyer, they need to be on the staff to tell you what you can and you can't do. But you need business people running this country. And that's the only thing that's going to bring around, and he's proven that.
Would anyone else?
Anybody else?
I have followed President Trump for 20 years before he I read his Art of the Deal. And everything he's doing in Washington right now is strictly out of his playbook. He's playing the Democrat right into their hands. Everything he does, boom. I fully support President Trump. He needs more conservative voices behind him to fight the liberal idiocy in Washington. We need to get behind them fully with everything. I'm fully supportive of President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you.
As I said earlier, I voted for Marco Rubio in the primary, but I supported Donald Trump in the general election. He was our candidate, and so I supported him. And do I agree with everything he does? No.
Neither do I.
But who does? So, I think he's doing the best job he can, considering the circumstances he's surrounded with. And you know, I think even he will admit. I saw where his former wife was encouraging him not to run again because she didn't think he could put up with that kind of stuff very long. But we'll see in 2020 whether he decides to do this again. But
I wouldn't object to a President Mike Pence.
Well, but yeah, I think he's doing a good job, and I think we ought to support him.
David, you would like to? And then we'll finish up with you, buddy.
Yeah, I supported President Trump from the very beginning of his announcement. I think he's a great leader. He's doing awesome things for the religious community, for our economy. I would hope that he would run another term. So yes, he is a tremendous man, in my opinion.
Thank you. And now this last one for you. It's come up a couple of times about your primary record. For those that don't know, you can give me the blame or the credit, whichever way you feel it should go, for outing Nelson Faber for his voting record. I wrote letters to the editor of just about everybody in the state, and it resulted in a lot more than I expected attention. But after I ran down his voting record, after I got inspired to do that, I did all of you guys. I've looked up all of you and when you voted, and I can't find a record of you ever voting in a regular Republican primary that's held in June. I think it's going to come up in the campaign, like I said, and you've acknowledged it already that that's the truth. But I think you deserve a chance to explain yourself to the folks why you didn't. It's not about politics, it's about civics. So
let me do it.
Certainly.
Thank you. It's a fair question. I've been a very busy man all of my life, and I thank God for the privileges and opportunities that He's given me. I just always assumed that our elected officials were representing us with conservative values. In a deep red state like this, you think that everything's great, kosher, and you're getting the fair representation that a conservative would believe in, but I found out that's just not always the case. There are many of our politicians who are Republicans in the White House and in the State House who simply go by the name of Republican conservative and are not. When I saw what was happening with DACA, when I saw what was happening in our school system, when I saw what was happening with the Muslims coming into our country, when I saw what was happening with the wall, I have to tell you, I became very angry and upset. And like all pastors would do, I sat down with my wife, I sat down with friends, I even prayed about it and said, God, I want to make a difference. It is a shortcoming of mine that I did not vote in these primaries, but sometimes you just think you're in a red state, these people are representing you, and they're not. And so I was encouraged in my spirit that I need to step up to the plate and be one of those guys that you've asked for. Give us people who are conservative that are on the outside, that are not politicians, that are not lawyers, but people that are willing to come in and fight for your conservative rights. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm in this district for a reason. I want to represent you. I'll fight for you. I'll be a true conservative. My record as a pastor speaks for itself. It is a shortcoming of mine that I did, and I apologize for that. But I cannot continue on the same path of saying, well, since I never had, I'm not going to fight to make a difference. That was a shortcoming of mine. I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to encourage other pastors to get involved in politics, other Christian people in communities to get involved in politics. That is my pledge. Thank you.
Any of you guys like to respond in any way? Well, folks, I guess that's going to bring it to a close. I got a couple of announcements that you all might be interested in. The governor, as far as I know, is coming to Easley March the 31st. We'll have him at Mutts like we always do. I offered any venue he wanted. Excuse me? May the 31st, excuse me. My head's still a little jumbled. May the 31st, excuse me. Catherine Templeton is coming May the 24th. Attorney General Alan Wilson will be here on the 10th. The only tentative, the governor is tentative. It's not locked down, but I spoke to his guy today, and that's what we're shooting for, the 31st. Unless something major happens, he'll be here. Catherine is a definite, and the Attorney General is a definite. The only problem we may have with the Attorney General is Mutts is moving, and the 10th is an iffy thing. If I have to, I'll rent another place for him to come. But one other thing, the Attorney General is going to put $300 towards the first people that arrive. They're going to buy you meals, so you won't have any. They said they don't want to spend money for a meal to stop you from coming. So he's going to spend $300 for the first folks to show up. As long as you get there early and get your part of the $300 and a free meal, and meet the Attorney General. Other than that, I appreciate all you guys. I've sat there beside Neil. Me and Neil are old hands at this, at arguing with one another. I appreciate you all stepping up to the plate to run. Until you've got everybody looking at you, you really don't. I mean, I'll say this to you, folks, and like I said, my head's still jumbled from earlier today, but these are people with families and children and mothers and fathers. They're not caricatures of people. They are people with feelings, and their families have people. Treat them with respect for the fact that they're up here willing to put themselves in front of you and ask for your vote. They deserve your respect, if not for nothing else, for that. Make your decision. Make your decision on who you think can best represent you. It's not about the nice guy. It's not about who's the friendliest. It's who will do the job. And with that, I thank you for coming, and have a good evening. And what? I'm sorry. Oh, y'all want to do closing remarks? I'm sorry. Well, we got to get out of here pretty quick. So, if you could cut it under 2, I'd appreciate it.
I'm asking for your support in District 5. I want you to know that I have handled and fought through many, many complicated financial issues, social issues. I'm not one that gives up or runs. I hit things head on, and I'm a great negotiator. I can work through problems, and I can get things done. So I will encourage you to vote for me, support me. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my thoughts with you this evening.
Thank you for being here tonight. Every political event I go to, I make it a point to say you could be anywhere in the world right now, and you are sitting in Tri-County Tech listening to 5 of us talk about politics, and you're bettering us, you're bettering the process. So thank you for being here, no matter who you support. And if there are any undecided out there, I've never made any campaign promises in my 4 years, and I won't. But what I hope that I do deliver for the next 2 years is the same thing that I have the past 4, and that's transparency, leadership, and courage. And I think you'll see that for the next 2 years.
Okay, I ran out of time during the introduction, so I'm gonna hit you real quick with some of the rest of it. I'm a member of the American Legion Post 52 in Easley. I was a founding and charter member of the South Carolina Horsemen's Council in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm also a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, Palmetto Sharpshooters, Camp 1428 in Anderson. The reason I'm running for South Carolina House is I have a vision for Easley and Pickens County. That's to identify and attract American companies returning from overseas because of recent tax cuts and having better paying jobs and careers for our citizens, to prevent Pickens County from becoming a bedroom community to Greenville with the low paying jobs and the drug abuse that comes with that. Easley is a bedroom community. We can't change that. We're always going to have low-paying jobs, service-level jobs, McDonald's, Walmart, that kind of stuff. But we need to attract these companies that are coming back to the United States, to Pickens County, to make Pickens County great again.
Thank you, each and every one of you, for coming, taking time out of your busy schedule to come ask us questions. We, as a community, are at a crossroads in South Carolina, in Pickens. We need to get the economy moving, to get jobs in Pickens County. And we're faced with tough decisions. If elected as your next state rep, I will return this seat back to each and every one of you, and I want each and every one of you to have a voice continually. I've got a 3-minute response time on my cell phone, and if you text me, I'll respond within 2 minutes. I will fight each and every day for you. Every single day, I'm your State House rep. The big question facing, do we want to continue down the current path we are on with a failing education system and crumbling infrastructure? Even with that high gas tax, we still have crumbling roads and potholes, and because there's no accountability down with DOT. We have to hold DOT accountable. If we're going to give them all this money, we need to hold them accountable. I think that it should be appointed by the governor as a cabinet level position with DOT. The choice is clear. Do you want a conservative, non-politician down there in Columbia representing you? And we need to drain the swamp. I mean, we need to, like President Trump says, we need to get rid of the swamp. Down in Columbia, there's a lot of bickering and arguing, especially on the left. And we need to stand up to them and drain them. Thank you for your time, and may God bless you, our county, and our country, and vote Phil Healy.
First off, I want to thank the other gentlemen that are sitting here willing to give your time for public service. And then I want to thank you folks for being out there tonight. House District 4 does not belong to Davie Hyde. It never has belonged to Davie Hyde. It belongs to the 38,000 constituents that I have the privilege of representing for the past 14 years. As I said earlier, I've been a part of this community forever, and don't plan on going anywhere. I got a 3-week-old granddaughter who has just recently moved back to Easley, and I asked myself, why did I run for re-election when I could be sitting and holding my 3-week-old granddaughter? But I thought it was important. I think it's important that we continue what we've got going on. I think it's important that we send people down there that have a business background. As I said, I'm a 3rd-generation business owner. I mean, I'm probably the only person around that's gone to the exact same building since 1968 to work. I've never worked in any other building except where I am right now. You know, the community's been great to the Hyatt family, and I just want to give back to my community, and I feel like I've done that. You know, I've made mistakes. I've heard from a lot of you folks. Ms. Brewer sitting out there is going to be my new neighbor here pretty soon. You know, she has the opportunity to buy a new house on the greatest street in Pickens, by the way. But she has the opportunity, like so many other people, to see things happen, to better herself, to move to somewhere where she wants to live. And that's what we're all trying to do. There's nobody up here mad at each other or hate each other or anything like that. That's none of that's going on. If I'm not successful, I'm going to support Mr. Healy if I'm not successful. I'm going to be his biggest cheerleader. I'm going to offer any kind of help I can offer him to make that job as smooth as it can be for him. If Representative Collins loses, I guarantee you he'll do the same thing for either one of those 2 gentlemen sitting beside him. It's not our seat. It's not our seat. It belongs to each and every one of you out there. And so, at the end of the day, I appreciate you allowing me to go to Columbia and represent you for the last 14 years. I look forward to going back. But, you know, that's your decision. It'll never be taken away from you. And so I ask for your vote and your support tonight. Thank you.
This event lasted much longer than we expected. If you haven't yet, please sign in at the front. If you'd like to make a donation to Pickens County Republican Party, please see John. And join me in thanking all the candidates for their time tonight.